What up, fam? What's happening today? We got a lot to talk about today on Chronic Conversations. A lot has been happening. I've got a few stories that I wanted to talk about because during the week I struggle to get some time to really talk about these topics. But let's get into it. I am Jay Chronic. This is Decoded HQ Chronic Conversations. So, first story I want to talk about Bellarmine Mugabe. According to News 24, I'm reading the article right now. Well, I'm reading the headline because I'm not subscribed to News 24. The article is actually saying, got an article in News 24. I'm trying to pull this up. Yeah. Well, this is City Press, sorry, not News 24, City Press. Bellarmine Mugabe offers to plead guilty and accept deportation to dodge attempted murder trial. So, what this roughly means is that he is saying yes, he is allowing himself to be convicted of attempted murder, but then essentially now he's not going to get jail time for this. So, he's offering up to say, listen, you can deport me back to Zimbabwe, and that will be my punishment. I take a conviction. I have a criminal record that I attempted to unalive someone, and also at the same time, I won't be allowed in your country. I don't know the terms of deportation, whether he'll be allowed back in South Africa, but then again, when you look at it, if it was anyone else, if it was a regular person who was being charged of attempted murder, the chances that that person would not see jail time would be close on to zero. But because if we got to be honest here, because he is the son of a revolutionary who goes by the name of Robert Mugabe, you can tend to see that maybe that is what has swung in his favor for him not to face any jail time. And I once predicted it on my page, on my TikTok page, and I said that this man might not go to jail. And I said that they will try and reduce some of the charges and so and such and such. But you can see that if we're getting news that this is what is happening, that he wants to plead guilty and then just get deported and not face any jail time, you can clearly see that, the gods are are with him, because wow, anyone else, you have an attempted murder charge, you're gonna go to jail for quite some time. But Bellarmine Mugabe will, at on the looks of it, it looks like he won't see any jail time, and he'll face, um, yeah, you have to be deported. Now, I know many people are going to be, I know the factions of people that are not going to be happy if this is to happen, because I don't know if this is now fixed, if the which article I'm reading, if City Press are actually saying that this is what's going to happen. If it does happen, then factions of people will be definitely not happy that he's going to essentially get away scot free, right? It's not going to be. It's going to be like in the context of the crime that is being that in the context of the crime that is being accused of, this would be essentially him being, um, it'll be him. You know what I'm trying to say, yeah. You know what I'm trying to say. It'll be on a wow. That's all I can say. I'm also in a bit of shock. Well, not in shock, but as I said, I once predicted it on my TikTok page that he's not gonna go to jail. He comes from a very strong dynasty. Yes, Robert Mugabe is not still alive, and the power that the Mugabe family once had has decreased because of the death of Robert Mugabe, but the family is still very much powerful, right? They still have connections, and yeah, it makes sense. I was talking with someone, and someone said that I hope he'd get free, because I wouldn't be able to understand what power dynamics have changed if uh, the son of a revolutionary cannot get away with cannot get away with murder. No pun intended, but to get away with attempted murder. That's how power is supposed to work. If you're the son of a revolutionary, yeah, you're supposed to avoid a few crimes. That's how it works, right? I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. That's just how power works. If you know powerful people, if you know connections, somehow, some way, you can evade law enforcement. It's a sad world we live in, but that's how power works. I know he's not on the same league as Jeffrey Epstein, but that's how individuals like Jeffrey Epstein go for a very long time without being prosecuted of any crimes. I mean, if you're connected to power, you can get away with a couple of things, serious things. I mean, in the context of Jeffrey Epstein, I saw that even after they saw his different crimes in terms of PDFs, him being a PDF and all of that, he was only going to get maybe about 3 years. I saw when he first gets convicted, he was, only going to be convicted of about 3 years. Correct me if my figures are wrong, but that gives you context that that's how power operates. If you know the right people in power, you can get away with what you can, until what you've done destabilizes the power, like what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, and then the power system, the system has no other option but to then prosecute you. So in this case, there's still time for Bellarmine Mugabe and the Mugabe family that they can still do these type of things and still have the power systems still protect them. It will only change unless the system then feels that, okay, the amount of things that are happening, the amount of things that you've done is destabilizing the system. That's when the power systems will no longer protect them. But in conclusion, we can see that the power systems look to be, they're probably going to protect Bellarmine in this case. And that was ultimately the story that we were looking at to see is, will the system protect Bellarmine or will they treat him like a regular citizen? I think we can conclude that definitely the power systems have protected him. The next topic I wanted to talk about, right? We wanted to talk about Ibrahim Traoré, right? I saw an interview of him saying that democracy kills us. He was referring to him and the Burkina Faso people, saying that democracy is something that is, well, destabilizes. He was pointing at the fact that what has democracy ever done? I'm gonna quote a man who goes by the name of Winston Churchill, who said that democracy is the worst form of government, but it's better than the other forms. I'm paraphrasing what Winston Churchill said, and that is gonna take some time for you to understand that statement. What I'm trying to say is that what Winston Churchill was trying to say is that democracy is bad, but the other forms are just as bad. That democracy, yeah, is terrible, but have you looked at the other forms? When we're looking at an autocratic government, a military state, all those other types, democracy has a tendency of being a better form of governance. And the reason why, if I was to choose one sole reason why I prefer a democratic government over all the other forms of government, is because of correction. When you need to correct each other, when you need to correct your leaders over the things that they do, at least the democratic process allows there to be a dialogue to say, listen, I don't believe that, there's a dialogue for citizens of that country to now air out their grievance, and they can now express that, listen, I don't like the way in which the leader has handled the issue of its foreign policy, the issue of the country's foreign policy. And then that is shared through, the press, the media, and somehow, some way, yes, the leaders will not openly accept that they've made the mistakes. Politicians rarely ever accept their mistakes, but you slowly get to see that the leader ends up changing somewhere, somehow, and they already get that information to say, okay, listen, maybe we need to change these different things. So the democratic process allows for dialogue so that there can be a correction or a better way of governing the people. That's why I prefer a democratic process. Another reason is not, I said sole reason, but I've got a couple of other reasons why I like a democratic process. The A democratic process, a democratic government takes longer for it to collapse, right? Autocratic governments, military states, all those other states where it doesn't allow for the dialogue of its people, the way in which those states collapse is very rapid, right? With democratic processes, it's a lot slower because, leaders, the system itself is not shaped around one person. It's not shaped around one political party. It's shaped around. It really does feel like it's shaped around the people, and because it's done like that, it takes a shorter time for that system then to collapse. If I'm trying to compare and contrast, take for example Libya. Great was a great country at one point. We looked. I've actually got a series where I've tried to look at Libya and how everything happened the way that it did, where Muhammad Gaddafi dies, and then ultimately Libya then falls into turmoil. But that already shows you the biggest problem with not having a democratic process or a system of governance is that once one leader, you know, once once you've now shaped your entire state or your entire country around one person, then boom, your country then falls into turmoil. It then collapses, like what happened with Libya and Muammar Gaddafi. The country was operating fairly well, but once Muammar Gaddafi gets taken out, that essentially brings Libya to the state that it's in, where Libya is now really struggling. So going back to Ibrahim Traoré, I understand that his grievance of saying that democracy is a failed process, but the fear now is, what are you now replacing democracy with? And currently speaking, from the interview that he had, where I saw he was speaking about, no, you know what, we need to prioritize protection of the people and stuff like that. Now here's the thing: without any democratic process, what if he fails? What if he fails to protect his people? Are there systems in place to say maybe we need to change the leader of Burkina Faso? Because definitely Burkina Faso is struggling with different terrorist groups. But now we look at what Ibrahim Traore is saying. How are people going to know whether he's the best person for the job? And you would need some form of democratic process. So the question is what is he replacing the democratic process with? Is he now the replacing it with is he now replacing it with a dictatorship? Is he replacing it with military rule? If that's the case, then there are going to be problems within the future, right? Even if he's successful, the it makes your state very fragile because once you're removed, then essentially now your country is going to be back to square one, like what happened with Thomas Sankara. Same thing, a great leader. He shaped his whole country around himself, right? Around himself, around the military again. But then guess what happens? Once he's removed, the country then does not know how to replace such a leader. Now, with democratic processes, it's a lot easier because you've got all the systems in place, you've got the legislation and all of that. You know the type of leader that can possibly remove, that can possibly take over in the event that your leader is taken out. And then that system can withstand pressure. With a military state or a military government, very very difficult for you to withstand pressure because, as I said, once you take the leader out, that's done. All right, and I just wanted to tie in with Iran. We currently see with Iran how Iran has allowed, well, not allowed, how Iran has lost, their supreme leader, but for some reason they still have the necessary systems to replace that leader. It's not a democratic state, but there's a system in place to withstand pressure. So this is not to say that democracy is the best. This is to say that a lot of focus is now going to be on whether Ibrahim Traore has got good system in place to prevent Burkina Faso from going back to square one, right? And that is a difficult conversation which we all need to have, because Ibrahim Traoré, he's had many assassination attempts. We know this, so it's not is we're not just creating conspiracy theories that, oh, what happens if Ibrahim Traoré is taken out. We can clearly see that that is a grave threat to Burkina Faso right now, that their leader could be taken out. The question is, what replaces? Who replaces Ibrahim Traore? What system replaces Ibrahim Traore? The one that is, what replaces him and his system in the event that he's removed? And right now, we're not seeing that, and that is not a good sign. It shows that Burkina Faso is very much in a fragile state, and no matter how well Ibrahim Traore can do for his people, no matter how the amount of infrastructure, the amount of stability, the question is that, can you create a system that can replicate itself for centuries after centuries? And I understand that there's a conversation of being against the West. I get it that Western countries are not the best allies to Africa right now, especially with the shadow of colonialism and all of that. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at it from, let's say, trying to take notes from countries that are doing well, right? When if we're looking based on economies, those economies are doing well because of their democratic processes. They've withstood pressure. The United States of America is a democratic state which has constantly been able to, have leaders, to have presidents, and still the system to stay in place. And yes, many people can talk about Donald Trump, that he is an exception to the rule, that Donald Trump is destabilizing America. But when we look at the Supreme Court in America, look at all the different judicial processes, the legislation, the House, the Senate, all those processes are slowing down what could possibly be the decline of America, right? And that is what you need, right? You also need systems in place to slow down the rate of, if you get a leader that could possibly turn your country into a mess, right? Or potentially turn your country into a mess. And that are all the different things that we need to look at in terms of our governance systems. Can't just only look at the here and now, but we also need systems where even in the future, in the 30 years, 40 years, 60 years from now, 100 years from now, our independent country is going to be able to be still standing and have the correct systems in place. So that's the conversation that I saw Ibrahim Traore having. Listen, great points that he was making about democracy being flawed. The question, and which is really important that people need to ask, is not focusing on whether he's right or wrong, but focusing on whether, what are you planning on replacing a democratic process with? And once we have that answer, we can now predict where Burkina Faso is now going, what path are they on. But if the democratic process is being replaced by a military state, or yeah, we're gonna have a it's gonna be a situation where already we will have an indication of how long Burkina Faso is going to last. Do I have anything else? Do I have anything else that I wanted to talk about? Yeah, we need to talk about Iran and America? Do we really need to talk about that? Like, I feel like we know we know the situation. If America keeps on saying that they're winning, when I say America, I mean Donald Trump keeps on saying that he's winning the war. It doesn't look like it. It looks like America just seems like they have no plan. They have, yeah, we can't really even evaluate how well America is doing in this war. But what we can say is that if the intention was to do this, if the intention was to win this war in quick quick time, it has failed dismally. If it was about controlling the Strait of Hamas, that's not looking well. Right, it's going terrible on that front. Donald Trump, I saw that he's threatening to say, listen, I might just strike some power grids or strike the oil, and then this war will be done. Still a lot of threats. At one point, Donald Trump will say that, Iran is close to a deal. That America and Iran is close to a deal, and then it's that's not the case, right? Iran then comes out saying that no, we're not close to a deal. There are different things that we want from America until that deal is done. I mean, Iran is saying that all U.S. bases must be removed from the Middle East. I don't know if I'm accurate on that. I'll check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard, that Iran wants all U.S. bases to be removed from the Middle East. Yeah, and I don't see the U.S. really playing ball with that particular agreement or negotiation. We're looking at a very long war um, ahead. Rumors are having it that reports are saying that the U.S. are now planning on having ground forces in Iran. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Many people are saying that the U.S., allow me to use informal language, are going to get their ass whooped because Iran is a difficult place with the terrain and all the. Yeah, the terrain is difficult. The conditions are very much difficult. The U.S. troops could very much struggle to really get a grips on trying to win against Iran, or try and at least pressure them into bowing to their terms and agreements. So that's not looking good on that end for the US if they're planning on doing that, because Iran seems like they're ready for a fight. I mean, I'm pretty sure all of us, we've seen the foreign minister talking about it. The foreign minister of Iran saying that they're ready for America. So yeah, Iran is posing to be resilient, and I don't know what world we'll be living in. I don't know what world we'll be living in after this war has ended. It'll be interesting. Anyways, good news is that Iran has said that South Africa can use the Strait of Hormuz. They can have ships passing that, so it's a win for South Africa on that regards. Even though petrol prices are still increasing, I don't know why though. But yeah. But sorry, I forgot why. Because the minister, can't remember, can't remember. I think her name is Kumbuzo. She was actually saying that most of South Africa's oil supply comes from Nigeria, so that is why. Maybe, I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But yeah, she said that no, most of the oil supply comes from Nigeria, so the Strait of Hormuz is not really contributing as much to South Africa's oil than Nigeria. So that is all I had to talk about on this week's Chronic Conversations. We started off with Bellarmine. We moved to Donald Trump. No, we started off with Bellarmine, then we moved to Ibrahim Traoré, and we finished off with Donald Trump and Iran and this whole war, and just did a little bit of bright sprinkle of good news that South Africa is going to be allowed to use the Strait of Hormuz. I hope to see you on our next episode of Chronic Conversations. Hi, I've been Jay Chronic. See you soon.